Just introduce first speaker Dr. Lin Fu from VLSI Research Europe. Dr. Lin Fu is the technical and marketing analysis of VLSI Research in Europe. In 2017, he received his doctorate degree in electronics from Cambridge University and started work in VLSI Research Europe. She has been published more than 10 papers in IEEE transactions. Currently, she focuses on marketing research and analysis related to the semiconductor test consumables. Let us welcome Dr. Lin Fu.
Thanks for your kind introduction, Wendy, and hello everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, maybe in US. And nice to meet all of you online today. And I'm going to talk about the external and internal changes driving the semiconductor test industry to adapt to a new reality. After this presentation, you will have a clear overview about what is happening now in the semiconductor test industry. How can you plan for the future and be a better position to make decisions using data?
Lynn, before you proceed, I just want to remind everybody you can use the Q&A tool to ask questions, and then Wendy will ask them of the presenter. So please put your questions in the Q&A tool.
Okay, so I continue. The semiconductor industry has always been changing, and there is nothing new in that statement. But it's quite clear that the speed of change and the level of complexity are growing fast. In addition, we now have other factors at play. There are COVID-19 and the US-China trade dispute. So currently, there are two types of factors affecting industry, internal and external. The internal factors are things that we can plan for or have some control over. So for example, our long-term plans to meet the technical and economic challenges will determine much of our success. External factors, on the other hand, are things that we cannot control or plan for. We don't know how long will it last and how they will change. But definitely, COVID-19 and the US-China trade dispute will change the shape of semiconductor industry. So it is important for us to stay informed. And then normal forecasting methodology still applies, but the level of uncertainty has increased significantly. So how should we think about the future? What does the future look like? In particular, what role will China play? First, I'm going to talk about the internal factors, technology and economics. As you know, technical challenges for semiconductor test industry includes high frequency, high-speed test, high pin count and pin density, extreme temperature test for advanced packaging and chiplets, system level tests, and so on. All these technical challenges are driving up the cost of test. From 2015 to 2018, test and burn-in socket costs per device tested were almost keeping flat. However, from 2019, both socket costs and socket revenues as a percentage of semiconductor revenues increased significantly. Test is getting more expensive, and this is causing the concern of chip makers and end users. As the test complexity increases, so the costs of tests are getting more expensive. and users of semiconductors started to pay more attention to semiconductor test industry and are becoming more involved with test. Google, Apple, Facebook, Huawei, etc. are achieving better product differentiation and can deliver higher quality products through test. The result is that end users are more involved in decision-making and are also driving much of the growth of system-level test. So why is the involvement of end users driving up the growth of SLT? Previously, cost of test was mainly from wafer test, functional test, and burn-in test. However, in recent years, 100% SLT is required for more and more new process node products instead of sampling, because not all defectives can be found with wafer tests and functional tests. So the cost of SLT is growing fast. But typically, testing does not add extra value. So if the overall cost of test is increasing, then the SLT must be adding value elsewhere. It may generate from faster learning, improved performance of end products, or using system-level time to upload firmware and run other tests. In summary, we think system-level tests will be a big growth driver for test sockets over the next several years. Now, we start to have a look of external factors. The first one is the impact of COVID-19 on the semiconductor industry. This year is a very unusual year. COVID-19 pandemic caused much concern for semiconductor industry at the beginning of 2020. So when we published this year's forecast in April, the data is quite conservative. However, 3 quarters have passed till now. The good news is that market demand is still strong. Sudden shutdown of factories at the beginning of lockdown, but most of suppliers resumed production within weeks. Automotive and industrials market were negatively impacted in the second quarter this year, but are recovering from the second half. And for the inventory levels overall, moved from just in time to just in case. The other external factor is the impact of continuous US-China trade dispute. So US government restriction on semiconductor equipment export to China. The objective is to stop advances in semiconductor technology within Chinese companies and organizations. Department of Commerce in US now has a deep understanding of the operation for the whole semiconductor supply chain. The result is new rules such as military end-use rule and restriction to Huawei's CMIX or other Chinese companies' access to US technology. And what US-China trade dispute means for Chinese companies and some non-Chinese companies located in China? For Chinese local companies, semiconductor industry or IC industry expansion is accelerated. Chinese end users started to work closely with local suppliers and try to replace suppliers from US as fast as they can. And non-Chinese companies are trying to find solutions to reduce potential risk. For example, move back factories or production line back to Europe, US, Japan, South Korea if they can, or build new factories in Southeast Asia. Semiconductor industry is influenced by both internal and external factors. But the good news is semiconductor industry is still on the growth path. Just as the shape of the industry is changed, such as the supply chain reconfiguring. So knowing how to respond and how to reduce the potential risk requires the data and the stories behind the data. So let's start to take a look at some of the data. 2019 was regarded as a correction year for semiconductor industry. Both IC units shipped and IC revenues decreased compared to 2018. And as I mentioned just now, in April, we published the 2020 forecast. The data is quite conservative. And at that time, the forecast was with negative growth rate. And that was at the beginning of lockdowns. However, based on the market performance of suppliers in Q1 and Q2, we revised the forecast to be positive in July. And all the long-term drivers still may remain intact. US-China trade dispute does not affect demand, only supply. And whatever happens with COVID-19, semiconductor technology will be part of the solution. In 2025, semiconductor market is expected to be 50% bigger. IC will still contribute more than 80% of total revenues. Compared to the revenue distribution of 2019, the percentage of DRAM revenues is expected to increase to 16.5%. NAND flash increased from 9.5% to 11.1%. For non-memory, GPU part is expected to have the biggest growth rate, increased from 2.8% to 3.4%. And under the growing trend of the semiconductor industry, socket market growth is even higher, especially for test socket market. Based on the Q1 and Q2 performance of top socket suppliers all over the world, we revised the forecast of socket market in September. Now, the test socket revenues are expected to increase 8.5% this year. Burning socket market about 2.1% growth this year. After talking about the global market, we take a look at what role China will play over the next 5 years. Firstly, China will continue to be a major consumer of semiconductors, but reduce dependency on US technology as fast as they can. Suppliers pay more attention on developing their own technology, and more decisions will be made by local Chinese companies. And how about the current situation of socket market in China? We have some data here. In 2019, China consumed about 14% of total test socket, and 20% of them was from China local suppliers, 15% from Japan, 24% from South Korea, 13 from US, and the other 20 was mainly from Taiwan. And for burning socket market, consumption in China was about 13% in 2019. These sockets were mainly from Chinese local suppliers and Japanese suppliers, about 38% and 36% respectively. How about the future of socket market in China? So semiconductor production capacity in China increased from 7% of world total to 12% over the past 10 years. And this growth path will continue. Test and burning socket consumption in China up from 4% to 14% over the past 10 years. And we think this growth path will continue as well. So more socket purchasing decisions will be made by Chinese companies. That is all the content of my today's presentation. To summarize, the technical and economic challenges are growing in complexity, but this can be addressed for the whole industry. The US-China trade dispute will not have a major impact on overall semiconductor demand, but it will affect supply chains, such as I mentioned, the supply chain reconfiguring. And the COVID-19 is unpredictable. This is an out-of-sample event, so we need to be on guard for a trigger, which may cause a collapse in demand. China's importance as a designer, manufacturer, and decision maker will only increase over the next several years. So it is not just time just to survive. Data and stories behind the data will give you what you need to make better decisions and create more opportunities. And thanks again for all your time. And any questions, please feel free to ask.
Thank you, Lin Fu. Very excellent, good presentation. Welcome the question. I got some question for Lin Fu. The first one is, how about the forecast of the semiconductor industry in 2021?
We think currently the forecast for next year is still optimistic. We expect to have a single growth rate, but this is also strongly influenced by the whether we have the serious or long lockdown again, and the industry when the industry can recover. Is it can be recovered next year or 1 year later? So it's a little bit still a little bit early to see, and let me see how about what happened next.
Thank you, Lin Fu. Do the audience have any question? First question is talking about the decision making. What kind of decision?
Yes, I can explain more about it. Like previously in China, a lot of factories from outside China, like maybe Intel, in Dalian, TSMC, and other big factories located in China. So we think like most of purchasing decision actually it's happened in China, but most of these decisions will decided from outside China because all these companies are foreign companies. So we think most of decision will be made outside China previously. But in recent years, more and more new Chinese local companies have more decision involved, more decision making. So it's kind of a little bit balanced now. And we think over the next years, more and more decision making will be made in China locally.
Okay, thank you, Lin Fu. And a second question from Kyle, Miss Tusi, sorry. If I'm wrong, please let me know. The question is, could SRT replace some of the conventional test process? If not, why?
Yes, this is a very interesting question, and we're also curious this question and talk about this question with many socket suppliers. The answer we got is they think the system level test will not replace the conventional test process because, for example, the packaging cost is still very expensive, especially for advanced packaging. So if we ignore such as the wafer test or ignore some process of functional test, it will increase the overall cost of test if we just do the system level test instead of the.
Okay, right now system level testing is become hot and hot. Also have design for a system level test. Yeah, let us the third question from Isa Lu. The question is, do we have the market share with the socket and burn-in socket?
I'm not quite sure. Eisen, do you ask about the global market share for different reasons or different countries? Yeah, we definitely have this data. I think we can share some of them, but it's better for Eisen to contact me via our official website. I think that is better.
Yeah, thank you, Lin Fu.
And last but not least, I want to thank our sponsors again who made today possible. Test Tooling Solutions Group is our premier sponsor. JDT Technology is our honored sponsor. Our distinguished sponsors are NIDEC SVTCL, Smiths Interconnect, TSC, and Feldman Engineering. Please visit their listings on the TestConX website, reach out to their staff with any questions. They're there for you, and they're happy to engage with you in any way you want to engage. And also, I'd like to thank our media partners as Silicon Semiconductor China from ACT and EE Times China, who's also producing their Double Summits conference coming up next month. So you can click onto these on the website for additional information. And then once again, an extra special thank you to Test Tooling Solutions Group, who has a wide range of solutions, and they would like to hear from you. So please take a moment and thank them again. And I would like to thank everybody else, everybody on for attending. Tomorrow's session 3 will be on high frequency and 5G and high speed data. It will start at 9 a.m. Shanghai time. A reminder, the Zoom links are different every day, so you'll need to use Thursday's Zoom link, or if you're on Bilibili, the same link will work tomorrow. So we look forward to having everybody join us there. And with that, I would like to wish everybody a great rest of their day, and I look forward to meeting with everybody tomorrow. So thank you.